Hello, as you can see it's a lovely day behind me and I'm indoors. I'm indoors because it's finally came. Right, American Civil War, epic battles finally came. And I would normally have my camera on the box as I bring stuff out. However, the box is so big I can't get a decent camera angle. So I get to talk to you and show you what's what as I get to pull it out the box. I spent a lot of time when this came in looking at that front picture. That front picture is lovely, it's fantastic, and it's really nice to see a piece of art that big. Battle scenes, normally we've got a slightly smaller battle scene in the box, but that is a really nice picture and you get a lot of stuff out of looking at it. Or maybe that's just me, who knows. So inside the box, first big pile of sprues in blue. 12 sprues. I've counted, I've checked them, which was a bit odd. I don't know if this is a common problem. I've wiped it off now, but you can see a bit of residue. There's almost like a goldy paint on some of the sprues in here. I don't think it was paint because paint probably would have dried by the time it got to my hand, so I don't know if it's release agent or stuff. So what I am going to do is give these a wash before I undercoat them. If there is release agent on the stuff and you try and undercoat it, the undercoat and the release agent doesn't quite set right. It's good practice, give them a wee bit of a wash. And there's 12 grey sprues representing the Confederates. I say representing the Confederates, the sprues are exactly the same. And they're the same as the ones that came free with War Games Illustrated way back in January. So a couple of things about that is, Takepi or not Takepi. I went back and I've looked at a lot of artwork, a lot of pictures from the period, and it seems that there were quite a few slouch hats used in the Union Army. Majority were kepis, but if you were on campaign back then and you lost your hat, your kepi, you probably needed a hat to keep the sun and the rain off your face. So certainly if I was in the regiments then and I lost my kepi, I would grab myself a hat. I have done a video where I showed you how to slice down the hats and turn them into kepis. It was relatively easy done. I was going to do that with about maybe half the sprues in here. The other thing is the blanket rolls. The Union didn't really get issued with the blanket rolls. So what I've done when I've painted mine, if you've seen them in pictures, all my blanket rolls is like a bluey grey from Games Workshop. That would be rust grey. And that gives it a uniformity and helps it blend in with the uniform without it totally blending in. The other thing I found when I opened this was, obviously being some pressure on this sprue, one of the cannons was knocked, the sprue on top, one of the cannons was knocked through, and I found that towards the bottom of the pile. And one of my standards, if we see that, is slightly bent here. A bit of pressure. All I'm going to do is repair that with plastic glue and get that put together. It's not too much of an issue right now. If you catch it early enough, if you leave it, it might fall off. Once it's fallen off, it's much harder to repair. The other thing you're going to get is 24 of these. These are the bases and these are in green plastic. It's actually the blue and the grey plastic colours means you can basically just mount up your troops and get plain. And one side's blue, one side's grey. The other thing about that is if you plan to paint it in the future, I'll just blue tack them in. They'll stay on the bases nicely when you're moving, and if you ever want to paint them, it's easy to take off. What I did find when I painted them, I tried painting with both strips on the base and painting the base. I couldn't get in as much as I'd liked for the back of the second rank, for the front of the second rank and back of the first rank. So I've actually painted them individually on the bases. So the other thing you get in the box, black powder rulebook. So this is a mini rulebook. It's only mini in size. It has the same page count and the same contents on the pages as the regular black powder rulebook. Okay, so what that means is if you don't have the hardback rulebook, you've got the full rulebook. If you do have the hardback rulebook, this is probably easier to carry around the games for you, with you. This also has a couple of American Civil War scenarios in it. It has an Antietam one. I'm working out how to do Antietam. and it also has a battle kern store in it, which, looking at it, if you knock the cavalry out the formations, you can fight that battle out the box. The Union have more cavalry than the Confederates, so they'd lose a bit more for taking them out. So if you wanted to be a bit balanced, maybe give Sullivan's command an extra artillery battery. And there you go. Also got some dice. 6 dice in the box. 6 dice is the most you'll probably roll for regular units at any one time. Now, get to some of the stuff I was most eager to see in the box. That's a couple of pieces come out here. This is the MDF. So you have some picket fences, and these are going to sort of push together and set them up. And you've also got a farmhouse. Now, if you've not made MDF before, MDF does smell when you first open it. I think somebody described it to me as it's the smell of is it formaldehyde, the lubricating agents they use for cutting and the scoring on it. I use super glue to put it together. Word of warning for super glue, it sets really quickly on MDF. But what I am doing is dry fitting stuff so I know exactly where it's going to go before I super glue it. I do like the quicker set. When I first started working with MDF, I was using PVA glue, and for me, I'm quite an impatient person, I must admit. For me, it was taking a bit longer, so I've moved to using super glue for it. But like I say, it does set really quickly, so do dry fit and know where you're going to put that super glue and how it's going to work. And as you can see, this has got the instructions on the inside, and actually Sarissa, I've put quite a few Sarissa kits together now, and they do go together really well. You might see my video on Stalingrad where I put the big Stalingrad sets together. And next up we have the flags. So 2 sets of flags here. So we've got a Union flag. What's really nice about this is the flags are labelled as well. I've got flag sheets from other manufacturers that aren't labelled, so it's kind of a bit of guesswork, better research for what they are. So what I plan to do with these is when I put them on the units, I'm going to be painting underneath, right underneath the bases, what state the flags are from. The other thing is a lot of the unions basically had the sort of Blue Eagle flag and the national flag. It says down here the Iron Brigade. There's not quite enough of them from the regular units. The Iron Brigade has the Blue Eagle flags, which are the kind of state flags, and the Union flag as well. So I'll probably use some of those for my regular units as well. It's also got a couple of specialist units. It's got the US Marines. It's got the Irish Brigade as well. As you know, I do have an Irish Brigade for my Union Army, so I'll certainly be using that as well. Now the Confederate sheet is massive. It's got tons of flags on, more than you'll need. It's got a load of Army of North Virginia and a load of state flags. And again, this is a blessing. I'll create my regiments from different states again right on the bottom, so I can eventually learn and get to recognise state flags. So they're looking really good. When I'm putting them on, I'll use PVA glue. Put PVA glue up the flagpole. PVA glue. I'll fold the flag over. Put PVA glue on one side. Nip that together around the flagpole. Squeeze it together, and then I'll kind of push it in from one side on the corners, push them in on both sides, and that'll make it look like it's rippling in the wind. And then finally, once it's all dry, I'll edge it with a colour so you hide the bit of white underneath showing through. And now we come on to the scenario book. So there's 26 pages, and what we're looking at is history. The American Civil War. It's basically cherry-picked some of the bits out of the Glory Hallelujah supplement. The Glory Hallelujah supplement actually goes into the history and stuff in quite a bit of detail. It's got some really nice pictures from Osprey campaign books. Big fan of the Osprey campaign books. Although my current favourite set of Osprey books is I think it's called the Combat one, where it's a Confederate infantryman versus Union infantry, or Chindit versus Japanese infantry. and they'll look at the soldiers, but then they'll look at some example battles which typify the stuff they're talking about, and looking at often a smaller scale. So I think the American Civil War one, the standard infantry versus each other, looks at the role of the fire zouaves at the Battle of Bull Run. Really interesting. So the rules, so it's taken the American Civil War special rules from Glory Hallelujah and put them in here for you. A few pages of those. It's got rules from Glory Hallelujah for the generals, Grant and Meade, Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, their special rules. It's also got basic stats as well for your units in Glory Hallelujah. American Civil War using Glory Hallelujah. Then it's got the scenarios. So it's got 5 scenarios. Now the first scenario I don't recall seeing anywhere else, and I have double checked my books. I've got the first edition Black Powder book here, Glory Hallelujah, and second edition. And this is pretty good. It's about 8 regiments aside, plus some artillery, so it's a really good scenario for getting you to start to learn about the rules, fighting the battle. There's an inn in the middle of the battlefield, which you can use your MDF terrain for. Now the rest of the scenarios in the book are ones that have already been published elsewhere, and Glory Hallelujah supplement. And I thought that was a bit disappointing. I thought you had the opportunity there to maybe create some scenarios, choose some scenarios using stuff out of the box, because 3 of them actually have more stuff in the scenarios than the stuff you get in the box. It won't be too much of an issue, you know, if you go 3 regiments, you will have enough regiments to be able to do any of these, but I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity. So the 2 you can play out the box is the first one, Greenbrier River, and Gettysburg Part 2, back for Culp's Hill. And obviously you've got the first scenario I talked about in the Black Powder Rule book. So you've got Battle of Wilson's Creek, Battle of Salem Church, and Gettysburg Day 1. Bit of a shame about Battle for Salem's Church as well. That's a pretty good scenario, battlefield, in that the battlefield is almost a mirror image of each other. You've basically got woods down either side, you've got a church in the middle, and the two armies coming to fight each other. You know, doing something with that and being able to change that up a bit with the regiments in the box, I think would have been a good thing. So scenario booklet. The other thing the scenario booklet does is clarify, as an optional rule, how you're going to measure ranges. So you can either use the ranges as is, 12-inch move. You can either reduce all ranges by half, so use 6 inches instead of 12 inches, or change to centimetres. So for example, those 12 inches becomes 12 centimetres. Probably going to work with centimetres. In another video, I've done a question of scale. We play Black Powder where we reduce it to 3/4. And sometimes that bit of mental maths, when you're trying to work out in the heat of battle, it would just be easier if it was just like, boom, 12 centimetres, no, we're playing in centimetres. So anyway, that's the box. I'm really looking forward to getting stuff done. No doubt I'll be showing you my armies as I start assembling. But that wasn't the only thing that came today. In a pretty awesome coincidence, I've also ordered up some Callistra models to supplement the Confederates. So I've got a lot of this stuff already for my Union army. So what I have done is I've ordered a couple of packs of Confederate Command from Callistra. Now the Confederate Command, if you're interested, they've got pretty good pictures on the website. The foot, so the standard bearers, officers and drummers are all kind of in slouch hats for the Confederates. Now the mounted command, which you get in the Union and the Confederate, are the same. So some of the mounted officers will have kepis. So I actually have now, between this and my Union stuff, I have a lot of mounted command available. I have got some limbers. So metal does take a bit more work to put together than plastic if you've not used metal before. Plastic, I'll generally use plastic glue for assembling. Metal, always use super glue. So I have a couple of Confederate limbers and a couple of Union limbers. So that'll give me 4 limbers each. I plan to have at least 1 limber per battery. I'll probably end up doing more as well once I've caught up with myself. I've got myself a pack of Union Cavalry. I've got 3 bases of Union Cavalry already set up for Epic Battles Black Powder. This will get me a second one, 6 bases. That should be enough cavalry for most battles. And to match that, I've also got myself a couple of packs of Confederate Cavalry. Then I have Confederate foot cavalry, dismounted cavalry. So we pack a dismounted cavalry there. Can't have dismounted cavalry without horse holders. I do have some horse holders as well. So these were the troops that stood back and looked after the horses while the dismounted troops went forward. Now I've also got myself a pack of Confederate Infantry marching. So when I'm filling in my front ranks with Metal Command, and why that's important is I'm doing 3 base units. So what that does is actually gives me 4 bases spare off each sprue. So I'm using metal, but I don't get the extra command I need. So I'm using the Metal Command to do front Metal Command bases. You'll have seen it in another video. I need a couple of line fillers on either side of the command group marching. So that's what they're for. And I've also got myself some Confederate firing line, so firing and reloading as well, so I'll be able to create some skirmish bases. And finally, to top it off, I've got the Command Personality Pack, which has got generals like Lee, Jackson, Burnside. I can't remember all of them. And there we go. So as you can see, it's the wrong time not to have any spray. But I have tons of American Civil War to get on with. I've got, I reckon, another 4 weeks before I can go back to work. So hopefully, the bulk of this project, I'll break the back of it and things will start looking good on the tabletop. But that's my haul. I'm going to go away and start sorting this stuff out now and getting to grips with it. If you've got the box, let me know what you think. And if you've got any questions, as always, fire them away in the comment section underneath. I will get a chance to answer it. And yeah, you have a great one. And that's goodbye now. Bye bye.